Hello and thank you for joining me again today. It's Tristan, and today our request was Hamburger Buns. The person who requested this said they were using a recipe from Chef John on allrecipes.com. So I'm just following that recipe exactly. So let's get going. We start out with a half a cup of all-purpose flour, a package of active dry yeast, and 1 cup of warm water. And we just whisk that all together to kind of give our yeast a chance to activate. And we just let that flour, water, and yeast mixture sit for about 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, we should see some foam, and it should have a nice bready smell to it. And I would say this is our first opportunity for a pitfall. If it doesn't smell bready and it doesn't look bubbly, we might need to buy some new yeast and start over. So once we know our yeast is nice and active, we go in with the rest of the ingredients, which is 3 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 large egg, a teaspoon plus a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 3 tablespoons of granulated sugar. And I'm just going to whisk all those things together before we add the rest of our flour. Going in with the rest of our flour, which is about 3 cups. And I have the dough hook attached. And I'm just going to let this mix together for about 5 to 6 minutes. After that mixes, I'm just going to lightly flour a work surface, scraping out our dough and just plopping it onto that table. And now I'm just forming that dough into a rough ball, taking the edges and tucking them underneath the dough, and towards the end kind of using the weight of the dough to help tighten up the surface a little bit. So I cleaned out the bowl of our KitchenAid. I'm just going to add a tablespoon of olive oil and taking care just to make sure most of the bowl is coated in a layer of oil. You can use a paper towel if you want. So now we just pop our dough in there, give it one little flip so both sides get some oil. And I'm just going to cover that with plastic wrap, and we're going to let it sit in a warm, draft-free place. This time setting our timer for 2 hours. After 2 hours, our dough has nearly doubled, and we just slide it out onto our floured work surface. And I'm just trying to form that dough into a rectangle about 1 foot by maybe a half a foot, about a ½ inch thick. Now we're going to cut our dough into 8 pieces. I didn't have a bench scraper, so I had to get clever with my little spatula here. So we're just dividing that dough in half along the length as well as along the width. And then we split each half in half again. Now I'm taking each piece of dough, and much like when we worked that first piece of dough, taking the edges and kind of tucking them underneath and stretching that dough just a little bit and trying to form them into nice rounded pieces of dough. And once we have all those balls of dough formed, we're just going to take them and stretch them out ever so slightly, trying to get to about ½ inch thick discs and just plopping them onto our sheet tray. Now I'm just going to give them the slightest dusting of flour and gently just placing a piece of plastic wrap over top of them. Again, just gently laying it over top of the buns. We really don't want this plastic wrap to stick to them. Now that our dough is covered, we're going to let those buns rise for 1 hour. After an hour, they should be doubled in size, and I'm very carefully removing this plastic wrap. We're going to egg wash these buns, so I've just got 1 tablespoon of milk and 1 egg. Just whisking that together until it's nice and smooth. And now just ever so slightly, I'm going to brush some of that egg wash onto these buns. You really don't need that much. Just enough to coat them, not enough so it drips off of them. We're almost there. Now we sprinkle them with sesame seeds, and I'm used to the Marty's rolls from New York, so I'm pretty generous with my sesame seeds. Once we have all of those coated in sesame seeds, we're going to go into an oven which has been preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 16 minutes. And this is what I ended up with. I'm pretty happy about it, given this is my first time making these. But I still think there are maybe a few things we could improve on next time around. I thought the buns were maybe just a little tough. I mix the dough on high speed instead of a low speed like the recipe specifies. this maybe resulted in more gluten development, which equals a tougher dough. My bun sizes were a little inconsistent, and admittedly, when I was portioning the dough, I kind of rushed it. As some comments online point out, these buns are pretty big. I think we easily could have gotten 10 portions out of this dough. When placing the formed buns on the sheet tray, I gave them too much space, which means that even after they rose, the sides were all completely exposed. Next time I'll place them closer together so the sides stick a little bit and you get that pull-apart effect like the ones at the store. Lastly, I think I let my buns go a minute or two too long. Even though recipes will give a specific time for baking, it's important to remember that all ovens are a little different. So thank you for joining me. I hope you found this helpful, and please let me know how it goes for you.